Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today is going to be a very exciting video for me because I love autumn. Autumn is my favourite season and I love autumnal books. This video is going to be me talking about my autumn TBR and also me recommending some books that I feel like are very autumnal. I think we should start with my TBR, so we're just going to get straight into it. I'll start with my fantasy because that is definitely the genre that I want to read the most in autumn, and I think the most important fantasy book slash series I want to read in autumn is the rest of the Throne of Glass series. Obviously, I've started this. You guys probably have seen my Throne of Glass reading vlogs if you have been watching my videos. I am now on to the last 3 books. I'm currently on the tandem read as we speak, and I'm really enjoying it. So I definitely want to try and finish this in autumn. I might be like pushing Kingdom of Ash into sort of late November, but I feel like that's kind of still autumn. But I'm really excited to finish these ones. The next book I'm probably most excited for is One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. I have had this for over a year now. I really wanted to get to it, but I know that a lot of people say it's quite a good autumn, winter even kind of book. So I might also push this one more into November time, and if I don't read it, I feel like I could probably still read it in winter. It's more of a gothic horror, and I feel like gothic, it does fit in with the Halloween vibe, but it also has like a kind of wintry, dark vibe to it. So I feel like this kind of works for both seasons, but I'm going to try and read it this autumn just because I really want to read it. I also would love to read the other book just so I have ticked it off my list. And probably the other one that I'm most excited for is Phantasma. This one everyone was reading last autumn and I never got around to it. I read Crimson Moth last autumn though, and I'll get to that later, but I feel like Crimson Moth and Phantasma were the 2 books that everyone was talking about. Everyone says this is such a like autumnal, very much like you feel the vibes of the book with this one, and I just really want to read it this autumn. It's probably higher up honestly than One Dark Window just because I know everyone says like it's perfect for autumn, and I don't really know what this one's about. I feel like I kind of want to go in a bit blind with it, but I really am excited for this one. This is obviously another fantasy book. It says dark fantasy romance. Interesting, because I've never read a dark romance. Yeah, really excited for this. It's obviously very Halloweeny, so this would probably be more of a October book. I've got the black sprayed edges, which I'm not always a big fan of sprayed edges, but I feel like it really works for this book. That's very high on my list. Then we've got 2 books that have been on my TBR for probably over a year, and they're 2 books that I feel like are also quite seasonal and quite autumnal, so I've held off on them, particularly Belladonna, because a lot of people really love this book and this series, and they do say Belladonna is a good book to read in autumn. And I've almost picked it up quite a few times throughout the year, and then I've been like, no, everyone says read it in autumn, so I've held off. I need to read it this autumn. If I don't, I'm going to be really annoyed at myself. So I really hope I get to this one in autumn. I'm pretty sure this one is kind of a similar vibe to One Dark Window in the sense that I think there's kind of like an ominous sort of presence around, which isn't necessarily a person. I don't know. I feel like maybe in this one it is a person. I have read other books that kind of have that kind of thing going on with like death being a character, and I really enjoyed them surprisingly. So I'm excited for this one. I just need to get to it. And then my last kind of fantasy book, I feel like this might not be completely fantasy, is A Tempest of Tea. This was another one I really wanted to read last year and I didn't get around to it. I actually got in a bit of a slump last autumn, and I'm actually going to include that book later on, but I'll talk about it then. So I never got around to this one. It was actually one that I was going to read, and then I was like, autumn's kind of over. I feel like this needs to stay in autumn. And for this one, honestly, all I know about it is that they are vampires and there's like a romance going on. And that's enough for me to be intrigued because I'm a Twilight girly, I'm a Vampire Diaries girly, so anything vampires I'm going to read. I also really want to read Vampire Academy, but that's not one I have on my physical TBR. This one I'm just really excited to read, and it's quite short, so another one that I really need to get to this year, but I feel like if I don't, I can hold off until next year on this one. And then the other genre that's obviously really good for autumn is thrillers. I am a fan of thrillers. I like to read them, but I do feel like I'm quite picky with my thrillers, and I've not had any 5-star. They're mostly middle of the road for me, but I do enjoy them. So I've only got 2 on my TBR for this autumn, and they are both by Riley Sager because I read another one of his books last autumn. Again, going to come up later in this video. And I feel like I really enjoyed his writing. I feel like it was quite scary as well, which I don't normally find the thrillers that scary. So I really wanted to give these 2 books another go, and I know especially one of them is quite popular and like well known, so I just really want to get to them. I honestly want to read all of his books, but at the moment I obviously just need to limit it. So the first book is The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. If you watch my videos, you know this has come up probably a lot of times for me to read, and I honestly thought it was like more of a summary book because it's on the lake, and I started reading it in July and it was October in the book, and I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna save this for October. We'll see if I get to it because I'm not really excited about this one. It's about a couple that like see something across the lake. I think they might even see a murder across the lake, and it kind of just stems from there. Whereas the other one I want to get to, which is the only one left, I'm definitely more excited to read. I feel like it's going to be quite autumnal again and quite atmospheric, so it's more high up for my autumnal TBR. And it also feels a bit more similar to the other one I read by Riley Sager. This one follows a character, I think she's like a carer, and she goes to this kind of an island. It's honestly reminding me of The Woman in Black. If you've read or watched that, it's kind of giving those vibes, but I think it's not ghosts necessarily. That's the vibe, and I think everyone is very scared of this lady. And I'm assuming she's going to be a bit scary, but there's going to be some stories there, and I'm very excited for this one. Then my next 3 books are more of like literary fiction books. I think I've said a few times now, I'm more getting into this genre as I get older and enjoying it more than some of the genres that I've loved previously. So it's one that I'm definitely getting more into and buying more books in the genre. I also feel like it's quite a wide genre. So the first book I have is The Wishing Game. This one, I honestly don't really have a clue about it. I get confused with this one and The Midnight Library, I think. I also would love to read that one, but this one is just the one I have. And it looks very autumnal. Obviously, it's like purple with books on it, so it's very like bookish and autumnal. It's giving cozy vibes. No idea what it's about, but I do want to get to this one. It's very thin. Then I have a book that my mum actually read and she recommended it to me, and it's The Full Moon Coffee Shop. As far as I know, this is a book quite similar to Before the Coffee Gets Cold in the way that a coffee shop shows itself, and it's based in Japan. I don't really know too much about it. From what my mum has said, there's cats and there's like zodiac, and I do like cats. I don't have a cat, but I love cats, and I am quite like an astrology girl, so this was very interesting to me. I know also there was a chapter, or like at least a chapter on Aquarius, and I'm an Aquarius, so this one is one that I'm quite intrigued by. It is giving me cozy vibes just because of the coffee shop and the cats, so I'll see if I get to it. It's obviously not high on my TBR because I didn't choose it, my mum just recommended it to me, but I would like to get to it by the end of the year, so we'll see if I do. And then the final literary fiction book is Cleopatra and Frankenstein. This one, I'm honestly not sure if I'll get to this because it's very thick. The writing is small as well, and I feel like Coco Meller's writing is a little bit slow. I enjoyed Blue Sister, which is also by her, and I know I'll enjoy this one because it's very up my alley. It's set in New York. I'm going to New York. I was thinking of reading this, but I just don't think it's worth me bringing because I think I'll get in a bit of a slump, and I don't want to be in a slump in America because I have plans. So I don't think I'm going to read it for that. So we'll see if I get to it. I think I will like it just because of the storyline that it's set around. I know it's basically just quite a toxic relationship, and it's a big age gap between Cleopatra and Frank. And I think Cleopatra is kind of acting as like a little bit of a stepmom to Frank's children. That's the vibe I'm getting. Very intrigued by this. A couple of my friends have read it and they enjoyed it. I also don't think it's necessarily autumnal, but it is kind of giving me a bit of autumn vibes. And then finally, I have 2 romance books. As I have been saying, I'm not as into romance as I used to be, and romance is definitely more of a spring summer genre for me, but these 2 I feel like could work for autumn, so that's why I've got them in this video, and that's why I've kind of put them in my mind to maybe have a little of a break from thriller and fantasy. The first book is one I've had on my TBR for ages, which is My Dark Romeo. This is one I think I saw Sarah and Lauren talking about years ago, maybe 2-3 years ago even, and I always loved the idea of it. It's like a retelling of Romeo and Juliet. I feel like most people like the Romeo and Juliet story. I do want to get to this one, and it is giving me autumnal vibes because obviously you kind of know what goes on in Romeo and Juliet, and it's a bit of a, it's not really a mystery, but we'll go over mystery. I think this is more like going down the mafia route, which also just for some reason gives me autumn vibes. It's quite thick, so we'll see if I get to this one. Both of these are very low on the autumn TBR, but I may get to them. The other one is Say You Swear. This one is like a college football romance, I think. I don't know much about it. It's one of those kind of TikTok books, and another one that I've had for a while. I think I might like it just because I am quite into sports and sports romance. I do enjoy sports outside of reading, so there's definitely that aspect to it. And I know that I think there's a good friendship group going on in this, and a bit maybe a fan family. So I feel like I will like this. If it's got similar vibes to Binding 13, I don't think I'm gonna like it. So we'll see how it goes. I think this is probably a little bit higher than My Dark Romeo just because I do think I could really like this one. So those are all my TBR books, and now I'm going to get on to my recommendations. As I said, I love autumn. You can kind of tell by my room, I love autumn. I tend to try and read more like autumnal atmospheric books in autumn because I romanticize it so much. It's literally the only time of year I romanticize, and I do always feel the most happy and like productive even in autumn. So I feel like I'm a pretty seasoned autumn reader. I feel like I've also been able to pick out the ones that actually give me autumnal vibes. There's a lot of thrillers I've read that I was looking at and I was like, these don't actually have autumn vibes, so I'm not going to recommend them. So I actually only have one thriller, and I'm going to start with that one. And that is the Riley Sager book I was talking about, and that's Home Before Dark. This one is kind of like a thriller, horror, mystery book. I think from what I can remember, she goes back to the house that she only lived in for a couple of weeks with her parents as a child. They were there for a couple of weeks and then they basically got so scared that they left. And her dad actually wrote like a best-selling memoir slash book about the experience, and she's kind of lived with that her whole life. I have a feeling she might even like have changed her name or something so that people don't know her as the child from that book, but she has vague memories of it. I think her father has passed away, if I'm correct, and her mum doesn't want to talk about it, something like that. And she's just got a very weird connection to her father because she doesn't know if it was really real or not, and her whole life she's kind of just been telling herself that wasn't real. He just made that up to sell a book, and he used me and my mum as like collateral. I don't know, you get what I mean. So she goes back and I think she's trying to like do it up. I can't quite remember. She goes back and it's kind of from there, and honestly I found it really spooky. I was kind of scared at points, so I recommend it if you like those kind of books that do kind of scare you a little bit. I feel like it wasn't high stakes, which was nice. Then I have two fantasy books that I feel like are very autumnal that I want to recommend, and the first one is The Crimson Moth, which I did talk about. This was on the rounds last autumn and it was hyped up for a reason. It is very autumnal, it's very quick paced, it's a little bit YA, but there are more adult topics as well, and it's witchy. It follows Rune, who is a witch, but she pretends that she's not. So she's kind of in high society acting as just like another regular girl. She is still a bit girly. She likes to talk about makeup and clothes and stuff, and she likes to go to, is it the opera or the ballet? I can't remember exactly. But that's how she portrays herself. But actually, she's a witch. She's also kind of acting as like a vigilante kind of thing and saving witches that have been hunted by witch hunters. And the other character, the male main character, is Gideon, and he is a witch hunter. And it just goes from there. It's honestly so good. I need to read the second book this autumn. Why didn't I include that on my TBR? Crimson Moth is so good. Recommend it to anyone. Even if you don't normally go for like a more young adult fantasy, I'd still recommend it. The other fantasy I have is These Hollow Vows. This one is kind of, as I've said a few times, it kind of is giving a similar vibe to ACOTAR, and I think a lot of people would agree with me if you've read this. It's kind of like ACOTAR meets The Selection, and those are two books and two series that I really love. So I really enjoyed this kind of duology part of the series. I feel like it has more autumn vibes than ACOTAR. It kind of has more of a dark vibe from the get-go, and it never really specifies a season. There's just more dark things going on, and one of the other characters in his little group, they just seem a bit more like they're in like dark. I don't know how to explain it, but it just has a bit more of an autumnal vibe. And ACOTAR I haven't recommended just because it's very specific season. Once you get to it, I don't want to spoil anything, but it becomes very specific. So this is one that I would recommend reading in autumn. You could definitely read it any time of year. If you romanticize it enough, it would feel quite autumnal. Then the next book I'm recommending is kind of like a fantasy horror book. I think maybe you would go more of horror. It's Mexican Gothic. So this is a book that follows a girl who is also sort of in high society. She's a socialite, and then her cousin, I think she gets like betrothed to another family, obviously, and another man, and then they never hear from her. And her dad sends her out to see what's going on and see why she hasn't been applying to their letters, that kind of thing. And she goes to this house. It's like a big Gothic mansion. She kind of realizes that her cousin is like, she's not really saying anything basically, and there's really weird stuff going on, but it honestly starts quite normal, and it's just like a family that are a bit weird. Honestly, they're kind of giving Adam's family vibes at the beginning, but it slowly becomes weirder and weirder. She starts to see things that she doesn't like think are real, kind of thing. I didn't really love this book, but I think it's kind of because I went in so blind that I did not know what was going on. The reason I'm recommending it for autumn is just because of the horror aspect, and there's a lot of like going into crypts and graveyards, and the actual mansion, it's kind of described in a very gothic way, like there's candlesticks. Obviously the cover is quite gothic. I feel like it's a good autumnal read. Then I have 3 romance books to recommend you. I feel like 2 of these are constantly recommended, so I won't talk too much about them, but first I have The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. I will say this is not a book you have to read in autumn. I don't even know if it's set in autumn. The kind of things going on are quite autumnal, in the sense that obviously she is a ghostwriter, and then the male main character is an editor. So it's very much in the book space, and I feel like bookish books do automatically give autumn vibes. So from what I remember, she's going back to her hometown because of a like family emergency, and I think her family runs a funeral home as well. So again, there's that kind of like funeral home, graveyard kind of thing going on. And there's another aspect to this book that is a bit more, I don't want to say witchy, but like intuitive, that kind of thing going on in this book. I like that because without getting too like in depth about myself, I can kind of relate to the intuitiveness and stuff like that. And I do believe in like manifestation and like signs. That is very much something that I believe in. So this character kind of has the same thing going on with her. So if you're like that, I would definitely recommend, but also it's just quite autumnal. And then the other book I feel like is constantly recommended, and I don't have it because I gave it to my brother's girlfriend to read, because I just said to her, you need to read this autumn. But I've got the second one, which is The Kiss Curse. The X-Hex is my favourite out of the 2. I have the third book, but that's a bit more of like a Christmassy book, I think. The Kiss Curse is good, I just didn't love the characters as much. In the X-Hex, the 2 characters are quite like witty, and their banter is just so good, and also they are exes that are going back together, so it's a second chance romance, and that is one of my favourite tropes. So if you like that trope, definitely read it. But it's so autumnal. It follows witches, which is automatically autumnal, but the small town is very like cozy. It reminds me of Stars Hollow, and they have like harvest festivals and autumn markets and like fairs. It's just very autumnal. And then the other one that, honestly, now thinking about it, it wasn't really a romance, but I think it is classed as a romance, is Like a Charm. This one I'm recommending because it's very short and it's set in the Scottish Highlands. I feel like Scotland already has like an autumnal vibe. I really liked the Scotland aspect of this book. It was very atmospheric. It was very well written so that you felt like you were there. And it follows Esme, who is from a witch family. She is kind of like denied that part of herself though, and now she's coming back to Scotland. I think her mum is very ill or something like that, so she's heading back, and she kind of falls back into her life in Scotland, and that includes the male love interest who she left before. So it's again another second chance romance, but I really liked them together and I saw the chemistry there. Because the book was so short, it didn't really develop the way that would make me really love it. So if this was a more full-length book, I would really, really have loved it. I just recommend it because it's so short and it's very like autumnal vibes. So next I have a couple of YA series that I wanted to talk about, and I'm going to start with the 2 Jennifer Lynn Barnes series that everyone talks about, I feel like. But I have only read The Inheritance Games fully. I've only read the naturals from that series. But these books, I wouldn't say they're autumnal in the setting or anything like that, but I think because it's kind of like murder mystery in both of them, and I think they're both set, but especially Inheritance Games, is set in like a big mansion, and it's just like there's lots of mysteries going on, so it does feel quite autumnal. I feel like if you romanticize it again, you can make it quite autumnal. I hopefully will read another book in the Natural series by the end of the year, but we will see. So if you want more of like a Criminal Minds kind of book, go with this one. If you want more of like a mystery, there's games going on, that kind of thing, go with Inheritance Games. And then the other YA series, which people might find a bit crazy that I'm even recommending this or reading it, is the Pretty Little Liars series. This I have loved reading. Honestly, out of all of the books I've recommended, these are the most autumnal to me, even though they're not necessarily set in autumn. If you've watched Pretty Little Liars, I would really recommend it. Obviously, if you haven't, still read it, but also watch Pretty Little Liars because it's so good and it's so autumnal. So that's like one of my highest autumn watches, honestly. But the Pretty Little Liars book series is obviously similar to the show. It still follows the like mystery of who A is, but there's so many differences. Honestly, I think from like the second book, there's so many differences that it doesn't really feel like the same series anymore, but obviously you still love and know the characters. I've loved seeing what's different in the books to the series, and it's just so cozy. And obviously because I've watched the show and I have like that attachment to the characters, it just feels so familiar, and I feel like that's such an autumn thing to have, like a familiar cozy book to read. And then finally, I just have a few cozy kind of literary fiction mystery kind of books that just feel cozy. First book I have is How to Solve Your Own Murder. This was a book I read I think last year, and it's just a really cozy mystery book. It's set in the English countryside. An older lady, Frances, has died. However, her whole life, because she had a fortune telling reading when she was younger, she has known how she's going to die and she's been trying to figure it out. And now she has. And now, obviously, the police and stuff are trying to figure it out. But her great niece, who is kind of the main character, is also Frances because it goes into the past. But Annie goes back, and she is. Firstly, she's just going back because obviously her great aunt has just passed away, but she then kind of gets roped into figuring out the mystery, and it is quite fun because you know that Frances was trying to figure it out. So you know that she was kind of getting somewhere based on the stuff she's left behind, but you don't know for sure. And I feel like the plot twist was pretty surprising, so I did like that. Then I have My Year of Rest and Relaxation. This one was another one I read last autumn, and it definitely isn't an autumn based book. It obviously spreads throughout the year, so it's not one particular season, but it's very cozy because obviously she's just resting, relaxing, sleeping. She doesn't really leave her flat, so that part of it is quite cozy and homely. I honestly don't really have much of an explanation for this one, but it just has a very restful, cozy vibe to it. Then kind of along the same lines, I have Before the Coffee Gets Cold. This one, as I said kind of earlier with the Full Moon Coffee Shop book, this is just a cafe that shows itself. You go to it, you have to drink the coffee, and you get taken to a time where you want to go back to, and you have to drink the coffee before it gets cold so that you can come back to the present time. And this book follows the owners of the coffee shop, and then it follows the stories of the people that are coming in. So there's like 3 or 4 different stories within this book. It's just really cozy because obviously it's a coffee shop. I feel like the concept of going back in time is a bit like spooky, autumnal. It's obviously magic, so there's that aspect. It just is very cozy, and you can definitely picture the coffee shop like sitting in this coffee shop with the rain pouring down. It's very autumnal. Then I have a book that I've recently read and talked about, which is The Unmaking of June Farrow. This, I definitely feel like, as I have said, is more of a summer into autumn transitional book, but the story becomes quite cozy just because of where the storyline goes, and I can't spoil anything. What I will say is that it does feel very cozy, and you can very much picture it. It's very atmospheric. They kind of have a witchy vibe going on from the get-go because the main character, June Farrow, her lineage of women have kind of known to be a bit crazy. That's how the village and the town see them. June has always known that that might happen, and also known that that's what people expect of her. So there's already like a kind of witchy thing going on. And then finally, this is the book that gave me a slump last year, but it is very autumnal and atmospheric, and it is set in Edinburgh, and that is Anatomy. A lot of people really love this book. So just because I was in a slump with this one, I didn't want to not recommend it because I know so many people love it. I think the book that I have read before this was Stalking Jack the Ripper. I think that's what it's called. If you have read that one, I'm not necessarily sure I'd recommend this one. It depends how much you like that book, because they were very similar. I kind of just felt like this didn't have what Stalking Jack the Ripper had, and that's kind of what put me in a slump with it. However, I would say this is so much more cozy and atmospheric and autumnal than Stalking Jack the Ripper. What kind of let me down with this one was a bit of the pacing, but also the romance. I feel like the romance in this had such potential just because of the stakes. It just fell a bit flat, and Stalking Jack the Ripper, the romance is so good from the get-go. So that's honestly what held it back for me. I do think it's very autumnal though, and it's kind of similar to Crimson Moth in the way that Hazel is from like a rich family. She's a socialite. She is meant to be like marrying off and keeping the family alive. I'm pretty sure her father has passed away or something like that. So that's what's expected of her. But she wants to be a surgeon, and women aren't able to do that, so she sneaks into classes as a man and obviously learns, and she's like the best student. This is how she meets Jack, who is the love interest, and I really like Jack. I think I honestly just didn't really like Hazel. And those are all the books I am hoping to read and would recommend for autumn. I hope you enjoyed this video. It might be a bit of a long one, but hopefully you stuck around. Hopefully I will get to the books that I said I wanted to get to. Obviously, I'm reading a tandem read at the moment for Throne of Glass, which will take me a little while, so we'll see how it goes. But I also want to say, whilst I'm here, I'll probably be doing more like mood reading throughout autumn and maybe even into winter and Christmas. So I might not do as many themed vlogs. I might just do more like autumnal mood reading. So hopefully you guys will like that, because I'll just make them very cozy and autumnal. It's my favourite time of year. I just want to read the books that make me feel like autumnal. So hope you don't mind that, but that is the plan for this month. I'm obviously going to America in a couple of weeks, so that will have an effect on videos. I might not be able to post whilst I'm there, so we'll see how that goes. But I have quite a few plans other than mood reading, so we'll see how it goes, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you for watching.